Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Oh, sorry. I think I'm not.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Richamati, when you're ready, you can start, Madhi. I'll share my screen.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. Let me start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Udreyate. Naste Prayeshu Abhrideshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamam Shloka Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Chapter 28. Kapila's instructions on the execution of devotional service. Text 1. The personality of Godhead said, My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth. Text 2. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. Text 3. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life. Text 4. One should practice non-violence and truthfulness, should avoid thieving and be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean, study the Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 5. One must observe silence, acquire steadiness by practicing different logic postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart. Test 6. Fixing the vital air and the mind is one of the 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body. Thus, concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Samadhi or Samadhana of the mind. Text 7. By these processes or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 8. After controlling one's mind and sitting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded and sanctified place. Sit there in an easy posture, keeping the body erect and practice breath control. Text 9. The yogi should clear the passage of vital air by breathing in the following manner. First, he should inhale very deeply, then hold the breath in, and finally exhale. Or reserving the process, the yogi can first exhale, then hold the breath outside, and finally inhale. This is done so that the mind may become steady and free from external disturbances. Text 8. The yogis who practice such breathing exercise are very soon freed from all mental speculation, just as gold, when put into fire and fanned with air, becomes free from all impurities. Text 11. By practicing the process of pranayam, one can eradicate the contamination of his physiological condition, and by concentrating the mind, one can become free from all sinful activities. By restraining the senses, one can free himself from material association, and by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become free from the three modes of material attachment. Uh, Thank you. Over to you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yeah, when you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji. Sundaracala Prabhuji. You're on mute, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for reading today's translations. Dear devotees, today we will discuss about chapter 28 in the third canto, Execution of Devotional Service. We'll start with brief prayers. Om Ajnanathmirandhasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Vishnu Prishthaya Padale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrida Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare. This chapter is a continuation of yesterday's 27th chapter titled The Fundament Understanding the Material Nature. So the continuation. So we are reading today chapter number 28 from third canto, which is basically execution of devotional service. So third canto, at a glance, we have so far came to a point where Lord Kapila, who appeared from the womb of Mother Devahuti, started speaking Sankhya philosophy imbued with the bhakti, and he started speaking about the teachings of Kapila till 27th chapter, where Kapila answers first three questions of Mother Devahuti, and he explains about Adhyatma Yoga, which is a combination, so bhakti and jnana. And now in this chapter, which is he's discussing about the Ashtanga Yoga in 28th chapter to begin with. So in this chapter, so we will cover till 11th verse today. Sorry, 12 verses I will cover. So the first one, text 1, the personality of God had said, "My dear mother, or daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing the system, one can become joyful, progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth." So concentrating the mind and the system which allows one to become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of absolute truth. So that can be mostly, this description fits the Bhakti Yoga. Though it is a Ashtanga Yoga, Prabhupada ultimately gives us the final ultimate conclusions. And in these 12 verses in this chapter describes the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. And you can notice from our previous hearings, the different limbs includes yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, and samadhi. So the definitions are given in these coming verses of these different phases of Ashtanga Yoga, little by little. 13th to 18th describes form of the Lord, actually, which one is supposed to meditate upon by following this Ashtanga Yoga. During basically the form of the Supreme Lord, the Divya form of the Supreme Lord is described. So, and during the Dharana stage of this Ashtanga Yoga, basically they start meditating upon this form of the Supreme Lord. And from the 8 stages, Yama, Niyama, Asana, and all. This pratyahara, the first 5 stages, are briefly explained. And dharana, one has to fix. Basically, dharana means one has to fix his concentration upon the form of the Lord. So what is that form of is described in the 13th to 18th verses. Whereas from 19 to 33, dhyana means deeper meditation. That concept is being highlighted, and dharana is intensified on individual limbs of the Lord, and that is described finally. What happens after that meditation? What will be the meditation of this yoga? Who will attain that? Who will attain? Basically, what is the result? Attaining the liberation, or another path could be directly attaining the bhakti and directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his abode. All these are described. Now we will start from the first verse where Kapila says, I will describe yoga system, which is Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. As you can see from the description itself, translation, it is a Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. This means mixed with Bhakti. The object of which is to concentrate the mind in the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada often says throughout the purports, object of yoga means to concentrate on the Supreme Lord. By following this, mind attains joyful spiritual path. And Prabhupada writes on the purport that desired result of yoga is not to achieve some mystic powers. Sometimes yogis perform mystic yoga to attain some siddhis, ashta siddhis, anima, lagima, prapti, ushitva. So that is their Ashtanga yoga result, but that is not supposed to be the result, Prabhupada says. When someone attains this, actually he doesn't gain much. There is no spiritual gain there. And these yogic siddhis are also on material plane only. As you can see, most of the general mass of public are so much attracted to these yogis because of their countenance and their and the attractive things that they do. And someone may get siddhi to walk on water. Prabhupada also mentioned in multiple times. Someone may become smaller than smallest, very big. These are all tools only. So what do we do with those tools? That is more important. These are, example, Hanumanji used all these tools. Hanumanji also has all siddhis. He achieved all the perfections, yogic perfections. He can become small, he can become big. He has to, when he has to cross the ocean of Lanka, he can become big. When Lankini actually, Surasa, the Rakshashi, when Demoness opens her mouth, he can become small at once, and he becomes big also. Basically, he's still utilizing all these Ashtasiddhis in the service of the Lord. So the Demoness, when keeps on increasing the size of her mouth, and Hanuman also keeps on increasing the size of his body. So it is like a competition going on. And Hanumanji realizes, I'm not here to waste my time here. My mission is different. I need to go and meet Mother Sita. So what he did, he simply became very small. And then, instead of fighting, Surasa, actually, the Rakshashi, what she did is she stopped troubling Hanuma and blocking Hanuma to proceed further. Instead, what she did, she gave benedictions for his behavior. So unless that devotional service is not there, merely attaining these siddhis is not of any use, right? Not much of use. Somebody who has its siddhis will have a strong urge to those siddhis, to impress people, or to get some fan following. That is actually a big problem. If we have, if he learns to be a big or small or just to walk on water, unless someone sees and appreciates it, he will not have the thrill in doing it. That is the only result actually. Will any yogi just go to the river and keep walking on the water if no spectators are there, at least there should be like 10 people, 100 people standing and clapping when he does it, right? So wonderful. People should keep appreciating, wonderful, supernatural, you are great, like that. They need to appreciate. Then he will be motivated. Then they will be satisfied to some extent. So His Holiness Radhanath Swami also, Maharaj also says in one of the events, I heard from the lecture that, and often he mentions in some of the interviews also, and even he written in his books, he's seen so many yogas. He says, I seen so many yogis perform so many mystic performances and siddhis, because in his travelings in the teenage, when he was actually in his 20s, he was traveling all across India, seeing different kinds of people practicing different kinds of mystic siddhis. He said, I have seen all these people and never impressed by them, because I was comparing their ability to perform these miracles activities with when compared to the ability of God to perform such miraculous activities. I was comparing them. What is the God's miraculous activity? You go under a tree, you will see a seed of a tree, and that seed has the potency to produce big tree, a banyan tree, and God has invested that small seed to become a big banyan tree, to become such a huge tree, which can give millions of seeds like that and shelter millions of pilgrims going on the road. And the same trees are acting also as a shelter for birds and for the travelers. And it is also giving firewood, so many things. So God has invested that much power in one seed, Mara says. And compared to that level of mystic siddhi that God is displaying everywhere in our life, trees today, today like this, after 1 year, you will see so big. Now, mountain you can see so clean, and monsoons come, but after monsoons disappear, after few days they will also become dirty. There is a lot of pattern in this nature, but who has invested that potency in this nature? Where is that mystic power in nature coming from? God. Compared to that, performance of these yogis of creating, manifesting some form of gold, some ring, gold chain, something like that, that is even in fact he explains in one of the stories where one yogi actually he puts a big iron rod on his eye, and he puts in and does something and puts pressure, and the rod bends also. It is very amazing for a regular common man. He's bending the iron rod with the help of a delicate eye, and so he achieved the power to do it. So people are gathering all together, appreciating, throwing some dakshina, throwing some money. Ultimately, that display of mystic siddhi is meant to get money. And other person may say, this perfection you gain, Prabhupada also says in his morning walks that such a yogi, if he is contested with a right thoughtful man, that man might ask that yogi, this perfection you gained of bending a rod, walking on water, for example, I have to cross a river, it is just only 2 rupees worth. I can also pay a boatman rupees 2 and cross the river, and he will take me from this bank to that bank. And you did what? 10 to 20 years of practice to achieve this siddhi. So which I can do with just 2 rupees. It is not even worth, basically, right? That's what he says. Some yogis might cure diseases. What is it worth? I can go to a doctor. Why to practice 50 years, 30 years of getting that perfection, right? So something that materially can be achieved, what is the point? So yoga means dovetailing one's consciousness with supreme consciousness, linking ourselves with Krishna. That is to attain progressive realization on the path of understanding the God, Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is what's supposed to be the yoga. So when we are discussing this Ashtanga Yoga path, dhyana part where meditation of various limbs are coming, that is very much devotional only. So meditation on various limbs of Supreme Lord's form, is very much devotional. We cannot just say that this is just a Ashtanga yoga part and we don't have to read it. That is very much relevant for devotees also. Devotees can take a lot of pleasure because all these are explanations of personal form of the Supreme Lord. And we believe God is personal, right? We Rupanagas believe God is personal and not impersonal. Brahman is a person and he has a form also. What are the details? It's described in this chapter. So we should be very curious. So Yama Niyama is described in 2, 3, 4 verses. In text 2, it is mentioned one should execute prescribed duties, first off ability, avoid performing duties not allowed to him, should be avoided. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord. One should worship the lotus feet of spiritual master. So this is where it is mentioned Swadharma Charanam Satya. You just of our ability follow your Swadharma, which is prescribed duties, and Vidharma cha Nivartanam. Don't follow the Vidharma. Vidharma means opposite of Swadharma. You are recommended to do something. It is not a Vikarma, but it is a Vidharma. It's not prohibited, but it is something that we have to be conscious of. Recommended to do something at one particular point of time, but we are doing something else in general sense. Eat while we eat, work while we work, chant while we chant, right? That is a philosophy. So avoiding performing duties which are not allotted to you at one particular point of time, that is what is being addressed here. So we have to do our duty timely. Daiva labdhena santosha. Whatever is coming on his own accord, Daiva labdhena. Yadruchaya, you might have heard many times. Anything that comes by the providential arrangement, naturally. So we have to be satisfied with that. Here, that is the philosophy. These are all points mentioned for a yogi to follow as part of Yama and Niyama. Santosha acts. So it is mentioned one has to be satisfied, accept it, not grudgingly but happily. Helplessly, we may have to accept anyways. If we are grudgingly doing it, we are helpless anyways. We cannot do anything more than it, what was given to us. But inside, you are not satisfied. Dissatisfaction is there if we don't do it. If you are not satisfied, it is always, it is actually blocking our progress to self-realization. And ultimately, the another fourth point that is mentioned is Atmavit Charanarchanam. Worship lotus feet of spiritual master. Atmavit means someone who is realized. Tattvavit, Atmavit, they are all self-realized. So Archanam, we must do a Archanam of our spiritual master. Otherwise, we cannot do this yoga. There won't be any use or result. So you might have heard, these are the 4 rules basically. If one, Prabhupada given highest devotional meanings for all these 4 rules in the purport. If one is fortunate to transcend destinations of birth in particular society or community by being elevated to standard of spiritual identity, then his swadharma is solely that of a serving Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the swadharma, serving Supreme Personality of Godhead. Swadharma means parodharma, right? So swadharma is parodharma. He saved by simply serving Supreme Personality. That is the real execution of our duty of serving the Supreme Personality of God. That is actually the parodharma. Not simply swadharma doesn't mean just simply varnashrama dharma. Swadharma literally means prescribed duty actually. Let us say we belong to a certain varna or ashrama, spiritual order or a social order. There are some duties according to the social and spiritual orders, but duty is here that is mentioned by Prabhupada is actually parodharma. Savai pumsam parodharmo yatho bhaktir adhokshaje. Bhakti to that adhokshaja, one who is beyond the perception of our senses. So in text 3, one should see his performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which will lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded. Thus, he achieves the highest perfection in life. And cessation of conventional, first line says, Gramya Dharma Nivrittascha. Cessation of conventional religious practice. That is what is also mentioned in Dharma Prorjita Kaitavatra Parama in the very beginning of Bhagavatam. That means we kick out the regular conventional religious practice which is always keeping us binded here. Moksha Dharma Ratistata. Second line says, get attracted to the Moksha Dharma, Dharma for salvation. We have 4 Purusharthas, right? First 3 Dharmartha Kama also are part of Dharma only, right? But there, that will keep us bind to this world, whereas Moksha Dharma takes you out of this world. So here the point is to focus more on that. And eat very frugally. Mita means limited. Last point is Vivikta Kshema Sevam. Shashwat Vivikta Kshemam. This means always remaining in secluded place, which is causing disturbance in our path of progress. That's what it means. Not really going alone and staying alone and practicing alone. If we practice alone, what we become is plastic apple, what I heard in another class. Neither we ripe nor we become degraded. We are like frozen in one particular condition. It is what a plastic apple is worth of somebody who is trying to practice alone, not to get into trouble, not to get into too much social activities. They think that even association of devotees is also a problem. They go into some kind of a their own world. Ultimately, they become so-called plastic apples. So that is a problem. So that's not what it is meant by seclusion here. It means seclusion from disturbing associations. And in the 4th verse, it is mentioned, one should practice non-violence, truthfulness, should avoid theft, satisfied with possessing as much he needs, gather as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, perform austerity, be clean, study from Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the God. Right? Ahimsa, Satyam, Astheyam, non-violence, truthfulness, refraining from theft. Astheyam means. So, Yavad Ardham Parigraha, possessing whatever is necessary only. Ardha means Yavad Ardha means what is the purpose of it? We have to keep asking if, before gathering anything or engaging in endeavor for getting it. So I have a need of 1 bag of rice. So you can use it for few days. No point in storing 10 bags, right? Like for example, I use a pen. I have 10 pens. No point in gathering 10 pens when I use only 1 pen at a time and not willing to give the other 9 pens to anyone, even if they were asking us, right? So Brahmacharyam, Tapaha Saucham, Brahmacharya, the celibacy, makes us once focused. And in fact, it is mentioned in one of the previous chapters that these 4 Kumaras, their semen keeps traveling towards their intelligence. When we follow the celibacy, one becomes so intelligent spiritually that ultimately the progress is going to be very nice with that spiritualized intelligence. Swadhyaya. So what we are studying now is basically studying scriptures. That is Swadhyaya. That is another principle explained here. Purusharchanam, worshipping the Supreme Lord. This is the ultimate instruction here. Purusharchanam, worshipping Supreme Lord. These are all. So if you might have observed, first it started with worshipping spiritual master. Before the explanation came, we should not supposed to directly jump and worship Supreme Lord because we don't know. We're not having enough without enough help from the spiritual master, which is descending to the Guru Parampara. There is no way we can satisfy the Supreme Lord. That is why it is explained next to the phase where in the previous verse it is explained you have to worship the spiritual master. These are all the yamas and niyamas. And going to the next one, when people try to do different things of yoga, so on, so and so yoga he is following before a, he could say, some people might come up with his own theory saying, you might have heard a lot of yogis or someone who is giving different varieties of yogas, even in India and in Western world. And people might say, you can meditate on anyone, and you can meditate on Durga, Hanuman, anything you can meditate on, but you meditate. That is important, people might say. And it is very convincing to a common man. Huh? So what he meditate, that is not important, people say. Huh? Whether your God, if you do Krishna, they might say to Krishna devotees. For you, Krishna is God for everyone, but they say for your God, Krishna, for you, you can be, you can meditate on anyone that you like, but meditation should be there. That will keep you cool. That's what they say. They're very nice to listen to. Their looks very nice. So socially acceptable. So many types of yoga have surfaced. Aerobic yoga, gymnastic yoga, some people, crazy people might come across things like flying on a cliff yoga, right? They publish title like once in a lifetime experience. So it is very attractive. People will come and attend. Meditate on crack of a wall, meditate on a lamp in a dark room. Out of meditation or yoga, one should be able to control mind and senses. Prabhupada says in previous chapters purports. One should be able to control mind and senses. As, I remember Prabhupada saying, I don't exactly remember the sentence, but it is mentioned, these yogis, after doing so-called yoga for 15 minutes, they go out, intoxicate like smoking and relax, because they cannot do it continuously. So they go out and take help of cigarettes for getting relaxation. That is their mind control, and that is their sense control. So you can clearly see Westerners are confused which one to follow. They post questions in Reddit, Quora, and there are so many, and they'll ask which one is the best. Please help me choose which one is the best, popular. They get perfect wrong advices, right? And that's what Prabhupada says. Practicing yoga means it should be done based on 3 sources: Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Without studying Shastra, whatever yoga one is concocting and practicing is simply waste of time. So in next verse number 5, this verse actually covers asana, pranayama, pratyahara. So maunam is actually part of yama and niyama only, where we don't speak. We speak only when needed. We don't speak unnecessarily, prajalpa. It means unnecessary talk which will only deviate us from Krishna. So that is maunam principle. Whereas the rest of the parts which is mentioned in this verse, sad asana jaya, means sitting straight in the correct postures. Someone might be bending. Someone might be, as soon as we bend, the thing is we cannot really focus on the holy name when we chant. When we bend and sit and chant, we cannot focus. So Sthairiam prana jaya shanaihi. That means, actually pranayama means controlling the breathing air. So we control the breathing, not just random breathing, but actually we control in a regulated manner, as explained. Pratyahara means withdrawing senses from sense objects. Vishayan manasa hrudi, concentrating one's mind on concentrating on one's mind and heart. That is the last point. So Prabhupada writes, sit properly with attention, sit steady, and by sitting in the right posture, we can be steady, and we will be able to sit. We'll be able to focus on chanting. So in the 6th verse, fixing the vital air and the mind is one of the 6 circles it is mentioned, right? So dharana, fixing prana on one spot among various chakras. That is what is described in this verse. First phase is in the 3 stages before we go from dharana to jhana and samadhi. The previous steps we all discussed, right? Yama, niyama and all. They are all only preparatory phases to do all the finally these three things, which are dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Fixing prana, life air, on one spot among various chakras. It starts from, I don't know much about it. I heard it starts with the different chakras that we have on our body, concentric circles. And fixing our prana in one of these and slowly elevate it to the murdhana snanam, which is sthanam, which is a head, is what is expectation. So means dhyana means fixing mind on the various limbs of the Lord, whereas samadhi means the last phase where state of being virtually absorbed in Lord, total absorption, trance. That is a phased by process explained. And in text 7, Prabhupada writes, the real yogi is the one who is constantly absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, a service of Krishna. Yogi namapi sarvesham, you might have heard, right? That was topmost yogi is the one who is practicing Krishna consciousness. That is topmost yogi. And eighth verse, actually, where do I sit? That is addressed here. Okay, I understand. I have to sit erect properly in a proper place, in a secluded place. But where do I sit is explained here. Should I sit in a chair? Should I sit on a mountain? Sit on a backyard deck? It is explained clearly what it is. Requirements are mentioned here. What is the requirement is it should be clean place. It should be a place where you can easily, comfortably perform an asana, and then you can sit in an easy posture. You don't have to struggle yourself when we have health issues, right? Practice by keeping body erect, sit in a proper asana so that you can move here and there. You are not discomforted. If we have leg pains, we can move. So Krishna also explains in this actually process in this 6th chapter in Ashtanga Yoga, part where Ashtanga Yoga is explained. Yoga should clear the passage of vital air, the next verse, by breathing in the following manner. So here clearly explain how a yogi should control his life air. He should inhale deeply, hold the breath, and exhale. So Satyananda Maharaj says in the living name, this process is how do we sit and chant? How do we do a little pranayama before we start? This is the verse that he quotes there in that book, Living Name book. We can also refer to this verse for today. Today's verse that we can read is actually the translation. Please read the translation and purport of verse number 9. And we can do that as a preparation before we chant. How to do a preparation before we chant the holy name of Krishna. It might help. And here Prabhupada takes us to Ambarish Maharaj. Prabhupada is giving the highest example of Ambarish Maharaj. Vacham Sivai Kunta Gunanu Varnane Savai Krishna Padaravinda. You're right. That verse is quoting where ultimately we should never, we should not lose focus that Supreme Lord is our goal. By keeping so much focus on breathing, one should not forget focusing on Supreme Lord. Prabhupada reminds us that in this purport. And in the next verse, yogis who practice such breathing exercises are very soon free from all mental disturbances, such as gold, when put into the fire and fanned with air, becomes free from all impurities. So that is what is explained. This is translation itself is enough. Otherwise, if we don't control the mind, what happens? There will be 100 other things it will keep on pushing. So a controlled mind means unwanted things removed. Focus on wanted things. Focus on wanted things. And pranayama helps in controlling the mind. When we do a pranayama and focus on the limbs of the Lord, on the form of the Lord, if not possible, we can simply try to follow the two principles Prabhupada gave, which is nothing but chanting in the mood of asking for a service from Radha and Krishna, and chant like a baby who is crying for the mother. These are the two moods that our Sampradaya has given through Prabhupada, and we can simply focus on that. We cannot follow meditating on the limbs of the Supreme Lord's form. And in the next verse, doing pranayama, what is the effect? One will be able to purify the doshas of the body, psychological, physiological balances. Performing dharana, one will destroy one's sins. Pratyahara, by doing it, what is the effect? One will be freed from material association with sense objects. So that is the result ultimately. And so you will find bhakti yoga in spiritual world. You will find ashtanga yogis and jnanis in material world only. This is the point, actually, essential point. These processes are there in material world only. These ashtanga yogis, jnanis, karmis, all these. But you will never find anyone other than bhakti yogis in spiritual world, Vaikuntha planets. So ashtanga yogis, if they get attached to the form of Lord, they can become devotees. If they retract from the attachment to the Lord, thinking that liberation is what is their focus is, then they become impersonal. So what is the focus of each of these practices? Depending on what, all of these elements that are there, like meditation, work, and knowledge, detachment, all these are, basically, ultimately the bhakti yoga is what is permanent, is what is the point I'm trying to convey. Thank you so much, dear devotees. In the next verse, it's just a translation. There is not much in there to explain. Thank you so much for your patience. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu, for making it approachable for bhakti